here for the first time, or it's been a long time since you've been here, we do have agendas posted by the door here as well as around the corner. If you want to speak to us tonight when we get to the public hearing portions, there's also a form for you to fill out. And please take that form to the ladies here at the desk so that we can call people up in an orderly manner, okay? I call to order the meeting for the Sierra Vista City Council for September 14th, 2017 to order. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Rick Mueller.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Alicia Ash.
Present.
Councilmember Bob Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Gwen Calhoun.
Present.
Councilmember Rachel Gray. Councilmember Craig Mount.
Present.
Councilmember Christine Wolf.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll next go to the, we'll next go to the invocation led tonight by Father Rob Neske and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Blanchard. Will you please rise?
Let us pray. God of power and might, wisdom and justice, through you authority is rightly administered, laws enacted, and judgment decreed. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct the deliberations of this council and shine forth in all their proceedings for the good of our community. We make this prayer to you, who are Lord and God forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Blanchard.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you, Father, and thank you, Mr. Blanchard. First item is acceptance of the agenda. Mr. Mount.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the agenda for the regular City Council meeting of September 14, 2017 be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We have a individual that wanted to speak to us on the item 1. Normally, that's not done. I will ask that individual to address us at the end of the meeting, so he will have an opportunity to address us. Any comments, questions, changes to the agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to item number 2 with the consent agenda. Ms. Ash.
Did we need to do the city manager's report?
I'm sorry. I went ahead. I guess I'm too excited, Chuck.
All right,
I apologize.
Thought you were going to let me off the hook.
No, we'll go to the city manager's report next. Mr. Patuchik.
All right, thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. We have 2 upcoming work sessions scheduled for September 26th, and the first one begins at 2 p.m., and that's a joint city-county work session with the County Board of Supervisors, and that regards a discussion of the Fry Townsite area. And then also you have your normal update work session, which will include the implementation plan for your strategic plan, as well as a main topic of discussion there. Just a couple of projects tonight. The Sierra Vista Technical Assistance Program, which we have been referring to as the OEA grant, has notice of intent to award that contract to Sun Corridor has been issued, and there will be a press release on that release tomorrow. And the MPO Sierra Vista Pavement Condition Index survey, that is through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. The advertisement will begin on that tomorrow on the 15th, with an opening at October 6th. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patuchik. Any questions for Mr. Patuchik on his report?
Negative.
I do have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
Is this for which work session? Will the Fry discussion?
That's the joint work session with the Board of Supervisors.
And
Yes.
that's the 26th?
Yeah, both scheduled back to back at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Patuchik, for your report. Now we can move on to item number 2. Thank you, Ms. Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the consent agenda consisting of the regular meeting minutes of August 10th, 2017, Resolution 2017-066, Fair Festival liquor license for Rona McMillan on behalf of Zapara Vineyard to sell wine at the farmers market on September 21st, 2017, October 19th, 2017, November 16th, 2017, and December 21st, 2017. And Resolution 2017-067, a special event liquor license for Rihanna D. Shaw on behalf of the Directorate of Family, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation for the Fun Festival on September 22nd and 23rd, 2017, both taking place at Veterans Memorial Park, be approved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or discussion? Was there a recusal issue on this, or did we get that taken care of? We got it taken care of?
Not on this one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now go on to our first public hearing item, and this is item number 3. Ms. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2017-069, approving the submission of the U.S. Housing and Urban Development 2017 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. McLaughlin, may we have the staff report, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or the CAPER, is an overall review of the community development activities undertaken during the 2015-2016 program years by the city. It's something we prepare every year as a recipient of community development block grant funds. It's used by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to measure performance outcomes. The report contains a lot of descriptive data and background on the community goals and outcomes and funds received and expended. The major capital projects undertaken during the reporting period include curb, gutter, and sidewalk installed along Taylor Drive from North Garden Avenue to North Avenue, and an 8-foot wide asphalt sidewalk constructed into Soldier Creek Park. Installation of streetlights in the Frytown site and Sullivan neighborhoods was accomplished during that time frame. The project is now complete. The city entered into a contract with Habitat for Humanity to move forward with an emergency home repair program. They've begun advertising the program and accepting applications. We anticipate the projects to be started and completed this year. Prior to submitting the CAPER to HUD, we must first advertise and hold a public hearing on the report. No public comment has been received to date in response to the city's notice, which has been published in the city's newspaper and on the city's website. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Questions from the council for Mr. McLaughlin? Any further discussion on this item? We went into great detail at our work session on this as well. So seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to our next public hearing item. Ms. Wolf.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2017-070, a request to proceed with Sections 1 through 9, Frytown site annexation, be approved.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. McLaughlin, may we have the staff report, please?
Certainly, Mayor. The resolution before you authorizes staff to proceed with the annexation of the unincorporated portions of the Frytown site neighborhood. The area is composed of 274 properties totaling 85 acres. Rather than take an all-or-nothing approach, we have subdivided the area into 9 sectors or block groups to give neighbors the opportunity to decide the question without the outcome causing confusion in service area boundaries. The proposed annexation is consistent with the City Council's adopted annexation policy and map and strategic leadership plan. If you approve the resolution after holding the public hearing, we will start circulating the petition the first week in October, first by mail, followed by staff reaching out to individual property owners. September 20th of next year is the deadline for collecting the minimum required signatures of 1/2 or more in value of the real and personal property, and 1/2 or more of the persons owning real and personal property that would be subject to taxation by the city as shown by the last assessment of the property. On the reasons to consider annexation, the way I see it, your house may be in the county, but you already live in the city. You should be enjoying the same level of service as those around you. Our nationally accredited first responders can be at your doorstep within minutes. The city's already providing fire service from Fire Station 1 on Fry Boulevard. The county's fire barn on North 2nd Street is EMS only. The city's trash service.
That's not the county's fire barn. It's the fire districts.
Fire districts, excuse me.
Okay.
City's trash service is a bargain at $18 a month, which includes pickup of yard waste. You can also participate in the city's free curbside recycling program. And perhaps most importantly, you can save 27% on your property tax bill by switching to Sierra Vista. Over time, you will see your tax dollars hard at work in road maintenance projects, street lighting, new sidewalks, and drainage improvements, with contributions from the city's Community Development Block Grant Program. You'll see our friendly code enforcement officers working with residents to improve property maintenance without compromising Frytown's identity. Your current property rights will remain vested under the county's zoning as long as you continue to use the property in the same manner. If you decide to construct a new building in the future, the city operates under the International Building Code, the same building code adopted by the county under a comparable fee schedule. And those are just some of the considerations. I'm sure the mayor and council will have more to add. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. And the way we work here is you've got 5 minutes to address the council. We have a system of lighting. It starts with everything lit up green and then goes to yellow and goes to red. When the 5 minutes is up, I'll ask you to conclude your remarks. And we have a number of people that would like to address us this evening. And we'll start with Mr. Newcomb.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Just look at this. Mexico here, we'll say. Mexico, Bisbee, Sierra Vista, Ramsey Canyon, San Pedro River. We have a problem developing here that is very serious. Bisbee is putting their effluent over here. We have several thousand septics out there. 14% of that is going into the aquifer. All that area there around Ramsey Canyon, they are bringing all of their septics to the Sierra Vista area. Let me show you something here. 92 and the bypass, Fry Boulevard, Pretty Mountains over here, Ramsey Canyon. This housing area that is here is all county. Those people chose to live there long before the country club was there, St. Andrews, the Whispering Hills, Foothills, all of this area. Sierra Vista was not much more than Fry. When these people moved out there, they are claiming the water that rolls out of Ramsey Canyon and then turning it into septic to bring it to us. That means that in a situation where we've got effluent coming from Bisbee, we've got pretty much effluent and sewage from all those houses out there. We've got Fort Huachuca effluent going there. We've got Sierra Vista effluent out here. All of this is gathering force out here. They call it toilet to tap. Now, toilet to tap means that they're going to make it into a chemical cocktail for some sort of federal limits on what is safe potable water. Yet these people out here on the Ramsey Canyon area, they got nice big water tanks out there. They've laid claim to the clean water and we are going to be drinking the toilet to tap. Now, annexation for me means that here at the Fry Township, we are saying hello to you people out there at Ramsey Canyon, because the only way that we can get that water to distribute it fairly and equally to everyone in this city's area, we have to annex first and then go eminent domain to get those water companies, because those people knew when they built out there, long before all of Sierra Vista was built, they knew that that water was clean out there. They knew it. They knew it. They've been smiling at me for 40 years. They've been taking the money for 40 years. They've been leaving me in a labor pool and in a garbage can for 40 years. They come into town, they smile, they give us their 5 o'clock news and tell us what friends we are, and tell us, they bring people tell us how to run our bus service. You know, they tell our school districts how to do things. You know, they put all our kids into one little junior high while they got their Valley School out there and the Palomino School, so that they can have teacher to student ratios much better than what we have. You know, so they come into town and they smile at us. They knew all along that that water was clean. I am telling you that if you want to look at this Fry annexation, those people out of there ought to remember that we're saying hello to them also, because we need to have clean water. We need to have clean water. You know, there's a difference in the water that falls from the skies in wintertime and the water that falls from the skies in the summertime. If there's isotopes and ions and all this kind of stuff, they're getting the clean water. We're getting water that's got fecal, you know, coliform in it. It's got calcium in it. You know, it's got bleach in it. You know, it's got all kinds of things. Hello out there, Ramsey Canyon, because you're next. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb. Before I call the next person up, I need to make a couple of general statements. One is the city is not planning on any eminent domain or exercise thereof for either the annexation or anything to do with water. And there have been no discussions, to my knowledge, about toilet to tap or using treated sewer water for drinking water in our community. So those are two things that would concern me if I listened to the last speaker, and I want to make sure that you know that that's not going on. Next up, I'll ask Lourdes Fernandez.
So thanks. I just have questions. I don't have comments.
Could you move the microphone a little bit down so the folks at home can hear you? Thank you.
I have questions about the Fry annexation project. The first one is, we've identified the advantages to the residents of Fry, and I'd like to know, will city resident costs increase as a result of the annexation? The second one is, will Fry resident fees increase? For example, impact fees for new construction, sewer permit fees, or any kind of permit fees for either construction or improvements. Talked a little bit about floodplain, flood control, or drainage improvements. There's some significant issues in Fry. Does the city intend to take those on? And if so, how will the costs be assessed to existing city residents? And I believe that the city might have acquired some Fry property recently, and I would like to know if there are plans for the city to acquire more. So those are my questions, and that's it. I just have questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can answer some of these. We've projected well, you may have a follow-on, or I may need to get some clarification. Initially, if we look at the prior annexations that we've had in the city, when we annex an area from the county, normally the police and fire costs go up initially, and then when they get used to the call level, the folks that live there get used to the call level, that will dissipate. So that will be an additional cost that will be shared across the city. And your second question was, ma'am? Impact fees?
Yeah, so will Fry resident fees
increase?
increase?
The fees that people pay right now for sewer. I think you guys are still on sewer with the city. Those should not increase. You should be on trash. If you are, then I think that was an option last time. You're not on. It was an option. So some are, some aren't. That would be the same as everybody else in the city. I'm trying to think what others.
Permit fees?
Permit fees would be the same. Would be the same if you were going to build a new building or whatever it may be. You have the same fees as anybody else that applies within the city.
So those all go, despite the fact that it's been county all this time, any permits would still be
Well,
city permits?
the thing is, if you now belong to the city, you would have to go through the city's permitting process and at the city's cost of fees.
Is that different from the county?
I'm not sure what the
process?
fees in the county are. Matt, do you have any idea?
The building permit fees are very comparable, is my understanding, and they're revisiting their fee schedule currently. So they actually may go up at the county level, is what I've read in the paper.
Does the city have impact fees?
The city suspended the imposition of impact fees for 2 years.
And impact fees are normally on new construction. So if you had a new development in that area, I don't know where you'd put it, quite frankly.
There's a lot of vacant land, and the
I know that,
trailers
but
are
I mean,
burning
as far as getting a large block together for somebody to redevelop, it would be a challenge to do that, and you'd have to do that before you would do the permit fee. So the likelihood is small.
Flood improvements?
Flood improvements, just like any other area and city, as we have a challenge with flood management and flood improvement, we're going to have to take that on as a whole, and we're going to have to look at that. We annexed an area south of Fry, the Solgar area. There were issues with flooding in that area before we put in the new streets. When we annexed in, we made a promise to try to work with that area, and it should have never been built there because it's basically a big depression, and the builder didn't put any flood mitigation at all when it was built in the county. And I know there are areas in Fry that are the same situation. And over time, we're going to have to use community development block grants, which we can't use now outside the city, to work on those areas. So it's not going to happen tomorrow, but there's got to be a long-term plan to deal with the flood conditions in the area. And I'll just mention, since Mr. Call is here, the last time they did a big chunk of county CDGB money in that area, it was for flood control, and the city kicked in $100,000 out of our budget to assist that. So that tells you that we're interested, and we want to make sure that the flood issues are taken care of.
So those are just costs that will be borne by city residents in the future?
They'll be borne by the entire city. Yes, ma'am. To include the new Fry residents.
And the property that's been acquired recently, are there plans to acquire more property?
The property that was acquired recently was done in concert with the county attorney on basically trying to clean up derelict properties. The city itself doesn't have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Patuchik, but I don't think we have any designs on buying private property and redeveloping other than properties that may become delinquent. And again, in this case, we worked with the county to be able to do that.
Will there be?
Well, let me
we also don't have any plans to hold properties. We plan to work with nonprofits like Habitat to reconstruct and build new there.
and turn it over to private hands.
So when this goes out for public review, will there be any additional information published along existing costs to the residents as compared to future costs, existing costs to the city residents as opposed to future costs?
Okay, who wants to handle this? Either Chuck or,
It doesn't sound real straightforward.
well, it sounds like you're not getting all the costs, and I can see where you would come to that conclusion. So staff?
Yeah, well, certainly, I mean, these are large questions, and we're happy to stay and try to answer them, or you can come in and work. But essentially what the mayor said is correct. When we annex the enclave areas, there are additional costs borne by the city for doing that. We all know that going in. We know there's going to be increased coverage or costs of the police and fire departments. We know there's going to be infrastructure improvements that need to be made. We do try to use our community development block grants to make those. Anybody that lives in Fry can see the improvements that have been made in the city areas as opposed to the existing county areas. We plan to continue to do that in the future. Over time, some of those costs then dissipate as the area becomes more integrated into the city. Our hope is that by annexing the city, providing the services, improving the area, that long-term to all city residents, these areas will be better for everybody that lives here, and the problems will decrease over time, thereby lowering our costs over time.
So we're identifying that as a hope. Is there a detailed cost-benefit analysis at this time that defines the cost of acquisition as opposed to long-term benefits? Or is it just we're kind of hoping things will get better?
Well, I'm just basing my comments on the experience of other county enclave areas that we've annexed, like Montebello and Solgar. We've seen positive results from doing that.
That answers my questions. I'm looking forward to seeing more information in the future.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate your questions.
Thank you.
It looks like Charlie Bosley. Mr. Bosley.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I've just got a few questions also. You say that, you know, we're going to have better fire protection and all that stuff, and I really don't agree with that because the Fry Fire Department gives us excellent fire coverage and excellent medical coverage and all of that. So I just can't see where you can say that we're going to have better coverage. Our fire station right there on 2nd Street is a lot closer than the one out on Fry Boulevard. And so, you know, I've lived here in the Fry town site for over 50 years. And I have a business that's been here over 20 years. And in all them years, I've never had a problem with either fire or even the police department. Our deputy sheriffs might take a little bit longer to get there, but they give us just as much service as I think the city could, you know. And then I have another question about our property taxes are supposed to be a little bit less, okay? But that I will agree with you. But right now, we'd have no taxes or anything on our utilities. We go in the city, we have to pay city sales tax on all of our utilities and all of that. By the time you figure out we pay you people sales tax on all of our utilities and all that stuff, it's probably going to be double or triple the amount of money that we would be saving on that little bit of savings that you're going to give us on the property taxes. So actually, we're going to be paying the city more money out of our pockets for all them sales taxes than we're going to be saving on that little bitty savings on our property taxes. So, and another question I have here, I understand that there's a lot of properties in the Fry Townsite area that still got septic. And I've been told that if we have a problem with our septic, that the city will not give us a permit to repair our septic. They will force us in to going on to their city sewer. And as far as the sewer and the garbage is, I've had this, I hooked up a long time ago to the city sewer. Okay, I pay my city sewer bill, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I understand that the sewer and the garbage are supposed to be combined. Is that not right or not?
I'm not sure where you heard that because I'm on one of the. I have a septic at my house, and I obviously take the city garbage, and I Nobody's given me notice as a customer or as mayor that that's going to happen.
Okay, but like I say, I've been paying for years, city sewer. Okay, if it's supposed to be combined city sewer and garbage, then I haven't been getting no garbage. I've just been getting
No,
sewer. So
it should be one entity alone, which would be your, you said garbage pickup is what you get?
the garbage pickup and sewer, from what I've heard, is supposed to be a combined price, service in the city, so.
Chuck, you want to hit that one?
Yeah, very quickly, the city does send out utility bills for sewer and sanitation. If you have only sewer, you get billed for sewer. If you have private sanitation right now, obviously your bill would come from private sanitation. If you annex, you have the ability to then go on city sanitation, and you would have a combined bill for both sewer and sanitation.
So you'd get a garbage bill and you'd get a sewer bill then?
You'd get one bill that would have the sewer and the sanitation.
But part of the question is, Matt, there is no requirement for the people being annexed in to change their service if they're happy with a private.
No, they would be grandfathered with their
would be
current
grandfathered.
service and then have the option.
What we're saying is if you have private hauler for your garbage right now,
Yes.
the opportunity to keep that person, but I would obviously recommend that you look at the prices, and if the city can do it cheaper, fine. If the city can't do it cheaper, or you don't want to do it for the city, that's
Okay,
fine too.
but what I'm trying, so from the city, we'll get a garbage bill and then we'll get a sewer bill, two different bills, not one bill combined?
It'll be combined.
It's a combined bill, but both items are listed.
So.
Because they're separate accounts or separate enterprise funds, so we have to account for the money separately.
Okay, and then back to the permit, if something should happen to our septic, we will be able to get a permit to repair that, or we will be forced to go on to the city sewer?
Let me turn you over to our engineer. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the requirement to hook up to the sewer is an ADEQ requirement. It is not a city requirement. If a septic system fails and there is a sewer line available within a certain distance that the property can connect to, and that is true regardless of whether the property is in the county or in the city, then that owner is required to connect to the city sewer line.
By the state law.
Now, if they cannot feasibly get there, if it's going to be above a certain dollar amount, or if it can't get to the city sewer line for whatever reason, then an exemption can be issued. And we do issue those for city and county residents where there's a sewer line that they cannot connect to for whatever reason.
In other words, we will be forced to go on to the city sewer.
Well, it depends on whether you decide to apply. What we're talking, once your septic system fails, that's what we're talking about. But if you're on an operating septic system and it's still operating and it's in good quality, you're good to go.
Yeah, but
once
if
it
we
fails,
have a problem with it. So.
Once it fails or it has problems, then we're under the state law, as she just explained to you. Yeah. If you have a reasonable response to ask for a reprieve on that, but chances are you would have to go to the available sewer system, and in this case, the sewer system would be run by the city.
If I can I ask a point, just a point for clarification, Ms. Lassar? So regardless of whether the property is in the city or county, if it were to fail, that would be their only option?
Correct.
Okay.
Inside or outside the annexation, you'd be the same situation.
And that is an Arizona Department of Environmental Quality regulation?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I just want to make a couple comments.
Okay.
First, we agree with you. The Fry Fire District does a great job, and if we didn't feel that way, we wouldn't be partners with them in a joint agreement to provide services and share. I can appreciate your concerns about getting away for somebody that you're comfortable with, but as you stated, the police and the fire and the police, the sheriff and the fire guys all do a good job. Well, our fire guys do a good job too, and I'm very pleased to see sometimes within the city when Fry responds to a call on overload, because they have very professional guys and they take care of our folks. So I've got utmost confidence in the Fry district. It is true that we do have some additional fees that are charged by SSVEC, the cable company, Cox, and I'm forgetting what, and the gas company, and that needs to be put in the calculation on the taxes when we send out the information, Matt, so people know what the real numbers are. And I don't think it's 3 or 4 times. I think you're being a little.
Well,
you're pushing your point a little bit when you say that, but
you still like right now, we don't have that cost right now.
No, it needs to be considered for available, so you guys can consider it and do your decision. That's pretty clear.
Mr.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Mr. Mayor, the converse is also true. The folks that live in the county that are in the enclaves or around the city are paying city sales taxes when you go and shop in Sierra Vista. And you're paying those taxes, we're getting the revenue from that, but you're not really enjoying the benefits, benefits of that.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. But as a businessman, if we go into the city, then I'm going to have to start charging my customers more taxes.
Well, city sales tax.
City sales tax is higher than what I'm having to charge them right now.
And that needs to be a consideration in your decision, and we understand that.
Yeah. And then I have to buy the city business license every year, where I don't have to buy the city business license right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why over the last year we've reduced the city business license costs significantly. So.
All right, thank you very much.
We appreciate all your help there, Mr. Bosley, getting the information that we need to get to you guys. Next up is Mr. John Woodworth.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, Fry Township citizens. I own a property that's a business property in Sierra Vista. I'm a little concerned about it going into a city district because of several things. I've already rented a property in the city, and I wasn't very happy about the services at all. Okay. First of all, they didn't know whether I was a county property or a city property when I called them up and asked them to start charging me sewer and supply garbage. They told me that I was a county property and I needed to pay city sewer, which was okay. So I hired a garbage company to come in. They brought me a 4-yard box for me to put garbage in. 2 weeks later, the city comes down and they say, you can't have that garbage. You're in a city. You have to buy city garbage. Well, a 4-yard city dumpster for my small business costs 4 times more than the county one. So I was forced to put a big round dumpster on the front of the street that I could afford to pay for. So I don't even think you guys really got your stuff together. I mean, you're trying hard. You're doing a pretty good job. But look, I come in and I said, look, I got a city property I rented, and you don't even know it's a city property. You tell me it's a county property and come back 2 weeks later and write me a citation. Okay? So first of all, I don't think that's right. All right. Second of all, on that property that I rented, it was an auto repair shop, and I install ignition interlocks, which are breathalyzers in case nobody had a DUI in their life. Okay? Well, we were earning a bunch of cash flow. So we got broken into not less than 3 months after we were in there. The back door was cut. Somebody stole our safe. We still haven't heard from the city police about that after they investigated. It's been 9 years. Okay? I'm not very happy about that. Then I put an alarm system in. Okay? The back of the building had a sliding door because it was a train depot for the fort. And the sliding door wasn't very secure. And it opened up, it moved and stuff when the wind blew, and there was a couple of false alarms. Now the city comes down and says, oh, you got to have an alarm permit. And by the way, you had 2 false alarms. You get to pay a ticket now because we had to respond to 2 false alarms. Well, there's a cost that I didn't have to pay in the county is the alarm service. Now I'm in the county, I get cheaper garbage. Okay, a lot better. Right now, there's a shop that I call regularly. They actually drag race down 4th Street. 2 cars at a time. They go excess of 50 or 60 miles an hour. I'm sure you're aware that there's a brand new apartment complex right there on Denman, across the street from all those new houses y'all put in. I've called several times because guess what? I'm on the county side, the other side is the city side, 2 cars going down. Which side do you call? Nobody knows. You call the county, they say, well, you need to call the city. You call the city, they say, well, you need to call the county. So I just call the city. I have videotape of those cars racing down the street. The officer says, well, I don't know how fast they were going. I'm just going to go tell them to knock it off, and they still haven't as yet today. Okay? I've been calling them for over a year. So the police service is horrible. There's only 2 cars in the whole neighborhood, plus a floater. I don't know how they're going to cover this whole neighborhood with two police officers. That's a big question. And then when you got people calling, look, those people in those apartments walk their kids to school over on Carmichael. They walk home on 7th Street. That guy goes racing down the street 50 or 60 miles an hour, can't stop, and kills a kid. Guess what? I think the city's going to be responsible because they're not following up on their citizens calling up and complaining about these residents and these businesses that are abusing the laws. I know the speed limit's 25. Well, I'll guarantee you those cars are going 80 and 90 miles an hour when they're in third gear at wide open throttle going past my shop. Okay? So there's a lot of concerns I have. The police response, the fire service, man, them guys, I would give anything that I have to them guys for anything that they want. And you're going to make them close a firehouse? It's actually a monument to Fry Fire District and Fry City. Well, that goes with today, I guess. You're just going to start tearing down all the monuments in town because of something. I don't know, you got to have a reason, right? I don't think that's right. And I think that you guys are just going to not do us that much services because right now I've got costs that far exceed the $18. That's great for a citizen that just has a dumpster on the street. I have a business. It costs me almost 4 times as much to have a 4-yard garbage can in my lot. And I know for a fact because I paid for it and I went through it. And that's pretty much I got. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that want to listen to a lot of things. They don't really want to talk about a lot of things, but I don't have a lot to talk about. I just need to bring these things to your attention, that these are things that are happening in that neighborhood that I've experienced since I've been here. I've only had a business in Sierra Vista, Frytown for 16 years. I'm sure there's a lot more that had longer than that, okay? And their services are probably about the same. But you know what? 4th Street's much longer than a lot of the streets, and it's wider, and it makes a really great drag strip. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have. And I'm really concerned about these kids that are walking to school down that street. You know, if there's a lawsuit, I'm going to call their lawyer up and say, yeah, I've called the police. I've told them about it.
Thank you, Mr. Woodworth. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate you coming and your passion tonight. You mentioned a couple situations with the police department. I would ask you to, after the meeting, to sit down with our police chief and say, here are the problems I've had in the past, specifically with police response. You said 9 years without a report.
Yeah, it was only $10,000 plus I lost, and now I still haven't heard yet.
The thing is, that's incredible to me that not only wouldn't you have that, but you wouldn't be raising hell with everybody you can to be able to.
I'm a real passive guy. I didn't want to come here tonight, so.
What I'm saying is, if there are issues like that we can help, the guy to talk to is Adam Thrasher over here. He'd be more than happy to sit down and discuss those items with you. You did make a comment about us closing the Fry Firehouse. That's not our decision. That obviously belongs to the fire district. So, and we fully understand that by our actions may end up in resulting either change the operation there or requiring them to move to a different location.
Thank you.
Mayor,
all right, thank you.
May I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't catch your name.
Mr. Woodley.
Mr. Woodley.
Woodworth.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I have a feeling that there's going to be several other people who may stand up and have very similar concerns. I guess the first thing to say is that, I won't speak for the rest of the council, but I have an assumption that many of us, we believe with what you're saying. You know, we believe that it happened and it's true. I will say that this whole process is really going to be y'all's choice on whether or not you want to be annexed. And the only thing that we can really do, and I recommend to staff heavily, is that not be defensive about your concerns, to take it all in and act as your representatives, which we potentially could be if this goes true, you know, and you guys decide to join the city, is to let us know all these things so that we can seek improvement. And it sounds like a lot of this I love the cost-benefit analysis comment, by the way, that was made earlier. But the other thing that it really sounds like is customer service. Are you really getting the service that you're paying for? And I think that if you allow us the opportunity to at least sit down, to continue to hear these conversations, we won't be defensive about it. The staff won't be defensive about it, and give us an opportunity to try to improve. And then hopefully we'll find some common ground along those lines. But I don't want you to walk away thinking that we're not hearing you. I think what you said was very sound, and we have clearly some improvement, especially from your perspective, that we have to perform before you're ever going to agree to join the city.
Yeah, I just don't feel safe. You know, how do I expect my wife to walk out in the street, get in her car to go get her nails done, and this guy comes raving down the street, knocks the door off, and kills her? You know, this is ridiculous. And I've complained about it mostly to foot officers, okay? I've never called this gentleman. I don't even know who he is. I've never seen him before. But I've talked to the beat officers over there about it. And, you know, one guy showed up and he says, well, I can't prove how fast they're going, so I'll go talk to him. And I'm going, look, I've got ADT video on my front gate showing you them going this way and then turning around going that way. What's the problem?
Then what I would recommend, and I guess what we'll act on, is give us an opportunity to try to resolve these concerns. That's our job as representatives.
I would like to ask is 2 officers for this whole area?
Right. But give us...
Come on, you know, that's like me running out and trying to play football against the 49ers by myself, you know.
Well,
that's
sure.
crazy.
Understand.
Okay. Thank you. All right, that concludes the public hearing portion. And nobody else? All right, then we'll move on to discussion of council. Any discussion or comments from council?
I'll just continue on with the thread that was there. You know, this is obviously something that, there's been a lot of this that kind of gets put out in the news lately, but the city obviously would love to have Fry Township come be part of the city and figure out how to solve problems and find common ground. I think we're at that point where things like that need to be considered. The county's losing population, the city's losing population, resources are scarce, and we got to find ways to band together to make things last longer, improve, get better. However, it's very clear, and I've talked to a lot of people out there, that it's the perspective that you all have with the city that we have to do a better job of getting out there and alleviating some of those fears and reassuring you. And so everything that you guys have to say is going to be taken seriously. We'll take it with all sincerity. You can contact me directly. I'm sure the mayor and the others will have the same invitation. And then with staff, keep a rolling log. You know, let us know where those issues are, and if we can handle little problems that create bigger problems with perspective, then let us know what we can do to help out. All right?
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I did have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start my comments by giving a little plug for the Carmichael Neighborhood Association. For anybody in the audience today who lives in the Carmichael, Frytown area, I would really encourage you to attend a Carmichael Neighborhood Association meeting. This is a group of citizens just like yourselves, work normal jobs, who have volunteered their time, their energy, and their sweat to engage with the Frytown Carmichael neighborhood community, bring concerns to the city council, and actually put in sweat equity into the community. So if you have questions about the city, if you're wondering how you can learn more about what's going on in Sierra Vista or within Carmichael Neighborhood Association, please attend a meeting. Their information is on Facebook. In addition to that, I would also like to say that, you know, the comment really struck me that your house may be in the county, but you live in the city of Sierra Vista. You're paying city sales tax. You're probably walking around on sidewalks that have been put there by the city of Sierra Vista. So with that money, I would encourage you to really consider coming into the city. I won't numbers, allow staff to do that. I don't want to say anything incorrect. But the cynical phrase, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help," has been kind of playing in my mind over the past week. And yes, as has already been stated, we are from the government, the city government, and I do think that we can offer a lot. But as Councilmember Mount said, the statute is written such that this is your decision. So my number one ask of you is, if you hear a rumor, if you have a concern, if you have a question, a lot of them that have been raised here, please do yourself a favor, do your community members a favor, and bring it to the city, whether it's at a city council meeting or if it's with staff one-on-one. I would ask you to please do that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Just briefly, I echo what Mr. Mount and Ms. Ash have said. I would just add to that one of the things I've learned being here on the council is that we don't do this alone, that it's the input that we get from the citizens in the community that help us make the decisions. Well, in this case, you have the decisions to make for the area where you live, but we would like to help you with that too. So to especially echo what Ms. Ash just said, the only way we know of the grassroots, boots on the ground issues is that you that live the life where you live can bring us the issues, and then we'll work together with you to solve those things. And it's amazing how many things can be solved once we know what the problem is. We can work with it. And I have to say, not just because I'm a council member, if I had had the experience before I was on the council of working with the staff that we have here at the city, you would know that they're there to find the answers and to help us all work together to get to the answers. So please, I love what you just said about, we're from the government, we're here to help. But, really, we're all, we may do the job from here, but without the citizens, we don't have a community. So we all have to do this together. However we can help you, whether you decide to join, to become a part of the city or to stay with the county, there's still the issues that need to be resolved. So we can all do that together. That's enough.
Thank you. Ms. Woodley?
I have nothing more to add, sir.
Mr. Blanchard?
Nothing.
Okay. So I think we're ready for the vote. And again, this just starts the process. This doesn't actually put anybody in the city. It just authorizes the staff to start the process. So I'll call for the resolution. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, may I, real quick, because there were a bunch of, I think, some quizzical looks. The process meaning that the city going out
Annexation
to
process.
talk to you guys about
Yeah.
the annexation piece. All right.
And then the letter and the information that we obviously need to supplement based on your comments. So I want to thank you for that too. And before we go, I want to mention that we have Supervisor Call stopped in to listen to some of the concerns as well. And he's here in the audience, so I want to thank Pat. Appreciate you being here tonight too. All right, we'll move on to item number 5 under new business. Mr. Mount.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Resolution 2017-071 approving the 2017 Title 6 Non-Discrimination Plan for the City of Sierra Vista, Vista Transit be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Adams, may we have the staff report, please?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and various other acts and authorities on the federal level require that organizations that receive federal funds, grant funds for programs, projects, or activities are required to follow federal law. Several of the departments that the city receive funding from have taken the federal law further and enacted regulations that require that the city actually put together, such as this document, a plan that reports how we are interpreting these laws and how we're going to abide by them and how we're going to put it out to the citizens so that they know their rights and their remedies in case there are any issues with these. This plan before you tonight is specific to Vista Transit. It's a renewal, it's a mandatory 3-year renewal of an existing plan that was first put in place in 2014. The document covers various, as I said, parts of the obligations of the city under Title VI, and it also informs our citizens of what they need to do if they have a complaint, how they have to file a complaint, whether it's Title VI, ADA, any type of discriminatory treatment they may feel that they have received as far as Vista Transit. The plan itself will become part of a larger plan later in the year that will cover all of the other funding sources that the city receives federal funding for. But because such a large percentage of the clientele for a transit system often falls in the protected classes, DOT has a very vigorous plan requirement, and so that is why they have their own plan. If approved tonight, it will be forwarded to Arizona Department of Transportation as well as the U.S. Department of Transit, and it will be posted on the website, and we will be developing a page on the city website that people can go to find all the information that they need to, and ask any questions or contact staff if they have concerns.
Questions for Ms. Yarborough, or Ms. Yarborough? Oh. I'm doing real well tonight. Sorry, Ms. Adams.
I do have one. Ms. Adams, you may have mentioned, and I missed it, is within the plan, does it lay out how a person would make a complaint? Should they have one? Is there a way that can happen?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, absolutely. It talks about where the complaints can be filed. Complaints do not have to be written. It gives them the opportunity, but we do have forms that can be submitted, and there are various places and people that they can be submitted with, and there are various people that can be contacted if they have questions about the process. So absolutely, we're putting a lot of information out so that any concern can be addressed appropriately.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. No, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's see. We next go to item number 6. Mr. Blanchard.
Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance 2017-006, revising Chapter 94 of the City Code of Ordinances concerning parks and recreation be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now, Mrs. Yarborough, may we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The changes that would occur to this ordinance with your approval tonight would be adding definitions of mobile food vendor, unmanned aircraft, and vapor product. It would update the definitions of smoking and spirituous liquor to match state statute. It would update the section on consumption of malt beverages to consumption of spirituous liquor. It would allow licensed mobile food vendors to operate under certain conditions at certain types of events due to some of the requests we've had of the public over the past few years. Smoking and the use of vapor products would not be permitted within 50 feet of any outdoor sports field or playground. It would update the language prohibiting the flight of model aircraft to unmanned aircraft other than at Bolin Airfield. It includes a prohibition on sky lanterns in addition to bonfires in city parks. It would not allow dogs on sports field aside from the exceptions that are already in the code. And it moved the motor vehicle parking prohibition to the motor vehicle section and updated the penalty section to make any violation of the motor vehicle section a civil traffic offense. There were no comments received from the public during the public hearing phase on this ordinance or the changes, and the Parks and Rec Commission reviewed these changes and they recommend their approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mrs. Yarborough?
I got a few.
Okay.
Underneath the mobile food vendors, I just want to make a note. It says here that we did not have the regulation in place to allow it before for them to go out there and service. This year would allow them to go through the process to go out there and provide food truck service to the ball fields at events, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mount, yes. The way the ordinance currently reads, a mobile food vendor could only be part of a special event. So if Oktoberfest is going on in the park, if Art in the Park is going on, and so on. So it didn't allow a single mobile food vendor to set up at a ball field, as you are stating. So this would allow somebody to apply through the process that will be developed to go and set up at a event such as an evening softball game.
Okay, that was my question.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Yarborough. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 7. Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2017-072, reappointing Norman Patton to the Sierra Vista Environmental Affairs Commission, said term to expire December 31st, 2019, be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if he's here. I didn't see him.
He couldn't make it tonight.
Okay. All right. We'll next move on to item number 8. Ms. Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2017-068, a special event liquor license for Eric John Potvin on behalf of the Sierra Vista Firefighters Charities for October 7th and 8th, 2017 at Veterans Park be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, if I
ma'am.
may, this is where I will be recusing myself from the vote.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? We were briefed on this on Tuesday by, I want to call you Miss Ash now. I don't know what's going on with my brain there, Miss Adams. But she did a good briefing, and any other questions for Miss Adams before we go forward?
No, but I do get a comment.
Comment?
These types of activities I know are very popular down where I grew up, and they do an amazing community service for our first responders. And it's so cool to see something like this kind of moving forward and continue to go on here at the local level. So, well,
Great.
here in Sierra Vista, I should say. So, good stuff.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? It's unanimous with one abstention, one recusal. Okay, next up, we're up to the final call to the public. And tonight we'll start with Mr. Chiabo. And the same rules apply, and you know that, of course.
Mayor and council members, I'd like to, first of all, thank you for, at the work session on Tuesday, going ahead and moving forward with the proposed change for Chapter 38 of the city ordinances, which covers elections. I just disagree a little bit with what you ended up coming to a consensus on. So let me start with, this is the reason why I started to do this. The change that what we currently have is the ability for council members and mayor to be elected in the primary. I'm not going to go into how that's done, but that's the way it is. Under certain conditions, it'll go to the general. But in the last two elections that I can remember, if I'm not wrong, the election was decided for council members and the mayor in the primary. The numbers I have here in yellow shows the numbers that turned out within the city for the general election. It was 11,700 in 2014 and 16,400 plus in 2016. If you look at the numbers that are in gray, those are the numbers of the people that turned out in the primary that ended up voting or seating everybody that's sitting on the council right now. This is a concern to me.
16.
Well, 14. I'm sorry. Anyway, you can see in 2014, in the general election, there was 70% more turnout by voters in the city. And in 2016, it was more than 100%. So I looked at the Chapter 38 of the city ordinances, and I made some recommendations. And so for what I recommended, and this is a little short, in the mayoral race, if there's 3 candidates or less, then those 3 would be deemed nominated for the general, and the primary would be canceled, and then you'd have the mayoral race, and whoever had the majority of votes in the general would end up winning that seat. And this is what I had recommended, if there were 3 or more than 3, if you had 4 or more people running for mayor, that the primary be held, and the 3 highest vote getters would then go on to the general, and with the same result, with the highest person with the highest amount of votes in the general winning that seat. So on Tuesday, this is, as far as I know, I could tell from the conversation that you had and the consensus you reached, this is still, the first part is still valid. What it sounded like it was going to change to, if there are 4 or more, which would require a primary for the mayoral race, then if someone gets 50% plus 1 of the vote in the primary, that person would be deemed elected in the primary and would not go forward to the general. So those extra 70 or 100% of the people that voted in the general last 2 elections would not get a chance to select their mayor. My proposal for the city council was that if there were 6 or fewer candidates for the city council, that those individuals would be deemed nominated, that would go forward to the general election. They wouldn't have a primary, and the top 3 or 4 vote getters, depending on how many seats need to be filled, they would end up and fill those seats. The consensus that you came to on Tuesday, if I got it correctly, for the city council, if there was 7 or more people running for city council, a primary would be held, and under the way it's currently computed, if any candidate gets 50% plus one of the votes, they would be deemed elected, and that person would not go to the general. It is possible in this scenario that all 3 or 4 seats, whatever is open, could be filled in a primary and not have any general at all. As I said, my primary concern for even addressing or coming up with a proposed change to Chapter 38 of the city ordinances was to allow the greatest number of voters to have a say who sits in this chamber as mayor and as city council. So I know that the process hasn't started yet. You did come to a consensus to move forward with, I think, what I perceived to be the change to what my recommendations was. I did talk to 5 people yesterday, and I explained this to them, and 4 of them, well, all 5 are registered to vote. They all live in the city. 4 of them vote in both the primary and the general, and 1 votes just in the general, but they all agreed that the vote should go to the general. Thank you for your time.
Well, we appreciate your time, and I know you're going to follow it through when we get the language done and written. And obviously, we want to try to avoid the primary since that's not the time when most people vote. We'd rather have the majority of the population, the electorate, I should say, vote. So thank you very much. We go from Mr. Kiabo to the Reverend Buchanan. Sean, it's good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you. I missed you last night, though.
First
of all, I want to thank the council members that came last night, Mrs. Ash and also Calhoun, for coming to the NAACP forum for justice. Thank you very much. As I was sitting there tonight, I was sitting there representing St. Paul. St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church is in the Fry Town. It's been there now for about 32 years. I've been there 24 years of it. I know Fry Town. That's where I live every day. I function there every day. Everything for me is about the West End. When I come here tonight, one thing that I feel is, and I didn't really want to do this, but when I saw Call to Public still happening, is bringing up the election process when we ask for a representative out of every community. Who here lives in Fry Town?
Well, technically, nobody should be living in the county.
Understand this, though. How can you make a decision or talk about somebody else's community?
I used to live there.
Okay, you used to. We're talking about current. So it's hard for you to relate to a place you don't live in. I like the sheriff's department. We got that system figured out. We talked about this last night. We got our fire department figured out. We do understand, and I've shared this with the city before, and I shared it with Gwen and them at the greet meets. I dialed 911 from my boardwalk at the church to tell them there are gunshots behind me on Canyon. They've told me to please hold while they transfer me. I have gunshots behind the church on Canyon. City of Sierra Vista, help me. Just a minute, I need to transfer you. Why I get shot? That's not good. Intergovernmental agreements work just as well. And you can put them in place just as well to make sure all of us get taken care of, whether we're paying taxes in the city or not. Our church, one church sits in the county, the new church is sitting in the city. We're going to manage both of them because we know both systems. But don't try to move people, and it is up to us. It's up to our church congregation to vote if we're going to be a part of it. It's up to each of our citizens in Fry Town to vote. But if they choose not to, let them live. And don't try to make them become something they're not. Because they love Fry Town just like it is. And just because it don't look like Winter Haven don't mean it's not right. It's very good. And last thing before I have my few seconds up, last night we talked about justice in our city. If you want to come to Frytown and you think it's bad, I guarantee you after 9 o'clock p.m., the majority of the residents that are running around Frytown are from other parts in this city. They're vehicles. Frytown doesn't drive Lexuses and Cadillacs and Mercedes-Benz. So the other part of the city comes when dark falls. So we might need your help. But if you come there and check it out, you'll see what it really is about. So Frytown provides a lot of services before dark and after dark in our community. And I want to just say to all my Frytown brothers and sisters, I pastor there. I've been there 24 years, and St. Paul stands on your side to do what's best for the community in which we live in. I'm not there, I don't live there physically and pay taxes there, but I got to care about Frytown because that's where I've lived for the last 24 years. And thank you for your presence tonight. Thank you, Brother Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I just mentioned that you mentioned the 911 call.
Yes, sir.
We have a new joint communications center that's coming on board, and that's with the county, and that's to try to solve that issue.
Good.
It's been a pain in the you know where.
Right.
I won't say where, Reverend.
Right.
But that's something we can work on together to get it done right. So I appreciate your comments tonight.
Church, that would be in your blessed assurance. Amen.
Amen.
But listen, we don't want to get shot.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll next move on to Mr. DiCarlo.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public that are here. We live in a beautiful scenic area in the Sonoran Desert or semi-arid plateau that I prefer to call home. I make this statement with malice towards none, especially the members of our collective employ who serve us honorably and with character and integrity every day. I've stood before you before learning the public about the tyranny occurring in our local government, whether it be a lack of prosecution and therefore allowance of defense of charges of officers of the law, or parks and bike paths not getting their equal love that they deserve, or a better word be now require since you've built them. In December, I rose before you to address about my concerns about a former officer who committed 2 Class 6 felonies 2 years prior to being accused of a relationship with a 14-year-old female. He hid behind his badge and kept milking the system until October 2016 when he was finally terminated. That provides an indication of a few concerns. When the elected leaders of our city say, we wish we could have done something about it, the statute of limitations for felonies is 7 years. 2 Class 6 felonies are part of the former officer's Roy's personnel file. The system worked. His actions were scribed on a piece of paper and put in his record. A member of the press, not the media, wrote an article. I read it, I requested his record, and I paid $5 for it. I made matrices of association, link diagrams, logical and analytical thinking. I came to you to allow you to help me, and you did nothing. So the old adage rings true. If you want something done right, you have to do it for yourself. I took his record to the Attorney General's office and I made a complaint. As a father of 2 beautiful young women and 2 beautiful granddaughters, I say this. Corruption of the morals of a minor child by a mid-30s man is intolerable. The fact that his pattern of life dictated that he was not living beyond reproach, setting the example, makes me concerned about our new branding of our entryways to our city. What happens when the corporation of government infringes upon the inalienable rights of us, the citizens, and then shields the infringers and breakers of the law from prosecution? That is where we find ourselves now. Another example was this on the 21st of August, the day of the eclipse, at 9:10 in the morning in the city manager's conference room. Not published in any public hearing announcement, nor released to the public. A man who was an officer of the law that lied in order to put people in cages was awarded $60,000 plus from his PSPRS fund after taking his own life, skipping out on justice. If I can remind you, during the budget discussions, our collective contribution for this benefit is currently about $750,000. Violators of their oaths of office deserve no benefits. They deserve entitlements. Entitlements such as orange jumpsuits, 3 meals a day, and an hour outside to see the sun, a shower. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It is important for us folks to understand, or actually overstand, this fact about our wonderful city, nestled at the base of the beautiful Huachuca Mountains. It was established in conflict and grows every time our nation creates conflict with other nations. It is self-evident that our homes were built as a result of Korea, Vietnam, and now the undeclared, unconstitutional, never-ending war on an unseen enemy known as terror. This 16-year war has militarized our local governments. If you're going to dress like a member of the military, you're going to act like a member of the military, you must then be disciplined and held accountable like a member of the military. As a submariner, I know I have a point of view that none of you have ever seen. But I do know of a sailor who was on a submarine who took pictures on there. He went to prison for that. This man was punished for his actions, unlike politicians who delete emails, agents of the government and local government who violate the rights of its citizens and of the city, a population of folks who have served their nation and therefore this city honorably. As a human being who has served you, all of you, honorably for 20 years, I have paid my blood tax already. When I approached you in December 2016 to address you with this issue, I hope to prompt my elected members of this esteemed body to correct the issue. But our representation here is much like the Politburo of the old Soviet Union, the very Soviet Union that this town was built in order to defeat. It is important to remember that our constitutional republic form of government is a culmination of historical documents, such as English common law, the 1100 Charters of Liberty, the Magna Carta, and our Declaration of Independence. James Madison wrote the following that kind of puts this whole scenario in a nutshell. In a word, as a man, it is said that to have a right is to have property. He may be equally said to have property in his rights. Liberty, I need to remind you, is freedom and morality. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. DiCarlo.
One other thing, Mr. Mayor, too. Goal 8.2 or 8-2 of the Vista 2030 is the purchase of local private water companies when feasible and available. I just thought that was I thought of that earlier when someone made a comment.
Thank you, Mr. DiCarlo. All right, well, the last person to address us tonight will be Mr. Newcomb.
On that form, I said annexation, but because of the acceptance of the agenda, that is what I would like to speak about. When we have these meetings, or when y'all have your meetings, very often, once people's penny has been discussed, they leave. Now, I don't know, I've never watched a broadcast of this meeting, so I don't know. I am going to speculate a little bit here. I don't know that when my name is called, a button is pushed. I know they have a 5-second delay that if I was to start cussing or become extremely uncivil, they could probably cut me off there too in the control booth. Call to the public used to be at the front of the agenda. When the pennies leave this room, there might not be any witness that someone was speaking at call to the public about something, because perhaps someone pushed a button and this person did not get to speak. Pornography. City Library staff has a good deal of fun with people. They steal property and they put drugs in food. They treat me like I'm a joke. I consider that to be pornographic. When I look at those shelves and I see miles and miles and miles of illusion on those shelves, that to me is pornographic. When I look out on 82 and see a pile of dirt 200 feet high, because this community is now full of people physically disabled in a military town, mentally handicapped in a military town, while I am working like a dog for 40 years and getting nothing. That is pornographic. I am being shafted. That is pornographic. When they tell me at the library that I must focus all my time on illusion and I cannot look at truth, That is shafting me. That is pornographic. When we say call to the public, we're not talking pat call to the public. We are talking citizens bringing their own particular issues to here. When it does not happen, that is pornographic. When you put a soldier in a hole because of your vote or a penny's vote, that is pornographic. When they play computer games in the library, or they're hustling each other like boyfriends and girlfriends when they're supposedly into knowledge, that is pornographic. There are issues concerning balances in life. When everything is weighed against someone else, they're getting shafted. That is pornographic. When I cannot look at truth and dream of finding a friend because you want me to live in illusion, an illusion that has miles and miles of shelves of different things that'll bring tax revenue to you, but I can't look at truth, that is pornographic. Being banned for a year is excessive punishment. That is pornographic. There's much that I see when I look at some of you people that is pornographic. Whether it's your police drugs in my food, or your friends beating on me, or me sleeping on cement and never waking up the entire evening, that is pornographic. Not finding a friend. Finding a friend is not pornographic. Most of your law is 50% plus one. That's women who wake up in a maternity ward because they were led down a road of illusion. That is pornographic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb. We'll now move on to comment. I'll close the call to the public, and we'll move on to comments and requests to council. Tonight, we'll start with Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. The points that you raised, I took a lot of notes, and we're going to make sure that we can get the information to you guys so that you can make your vote whichever way you want to, but at least it's going to be an informed vote. Thank you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. Mr. Blanchard.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Mr. Mount.
Of course, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be somewhat brief. I got a couple things, I guess. You know, one of the things that happens with this job, what I've noticed now going on just over 3 years, I think, for us, kind of getting up there, culminating with our 4 years. It's hard to kind of sit up here sometimes, but it's our job to take it all in and hear what the public has to say. And I think where I try to find some semblances, I've done this before. Before I ever got elected, I sat out there, and I've told this story before. I came up and I spoke to council, and council just kind of sat there and went on and made decisions. And I didn't maybe know any better. I assumed a lot. I do know that, you know, during the call to the public, it's your time to talk to us, and y'all can come up and say whatever you like. We're not really supposed to comment back. We typically don't unless there's some sort of a grievous insult that's kind of laid at our feet. It makes it really kind of hard to kind of reply back to some of the things that you feel motivated to reply back to. You know, so, and I'm rather somebody who enjoys communication with everybody. The question was posed, how many of us lived on the West End? I lived on the West End for 3 years when I was in the military. I did. I lived right out there off of, right down from Len Roberts Park. I used to go run down near Carmichael, used to go run down 3rd Avenue. Our house backed right up to Tacoma. That's where we lived. It was the very first place that I lived when I moved out here with my wife. I know what the West End's all about. I know what Fry Township's all about. I've been right there. I didn't know it from this perspective, but I knew it. I also know that there's people on this staff and there's people in this city, you know, on city council that I work with, that we do disagree with things on policy. We disagree on politics at times. But there's nobody here that I've met, and I'd be the first to point them out, that I think is malicious or trying to take from anybody or trying to do something that's unethical or illegal. And I think that that needs to be defended from assumption. I do think that to stand up and, we talk a little bit about the rights that we all have, and I'm looking for Michael over there, but as a veteran myself who fought in Iraq with a very good group of recon guys, I know what it's like to sit there and come back and question things that go on at the federal level, but then to apply them down at the local level is as though there's some sort of, first off, we're not smart enough to conduct conspiracy. I'll tell you that. As many of y'all pointed out, we're not. But what I will say is we do care, and one of the biggest rights that we do have is due process, and there are just certain things that we just can't act on without due process, and be patient with due process in all things. The last thing that I'll touch on, because this is another thing that's been going on, and there's been a series of emails. I've shared them with the staff, the mayor. They've educated me. I've tried to put my perspective on it. I'll be brief. I'll touch more about it on my own social media as this ambulance issue that keeps kind of getting ballied around. There's a lot of bad information that's out there. The city is not trying to take over a company or move a company out. And I do this kind of stuff for a living, and it's very complex, so I'll try to be brief. In 2013, I'm not even going to go there. 2015, there was an executive order that was put out by the Obama administration. It's a normal executive order. And what it said was that the federal minimum wage is $10.12 unless you're going to do a service contract with the federal government, and that falls into what's called the Wage Determination, the Service Contract Act, the SCA. And then what it says is that federal minimum wage would no longer apply. And what will happen is that the new minimum wage will be set by that wage determination. That new hourly rate set in the wage determination for an ambulance driver or paramedic for Cochise County as of this month is $18.84. I might be off by a few cents. Sequestration hit, actually several years before that. And what that meant was the amount of defense dollars that we were getting at the installation level wasn't going as far as it could. It was getting cut back every time there was a budgetary problem. So the National Defense Authorization Act of 2015 set in motion a series of provisions that allowed the installation level garrisons across the country to go out and conduct an intergovernmental service agreement with a municipality that offered the services in order to reduce the cost, or else the service would go away. So what does that mean? That means that the city has the service, the federal government approaches the city and says, we cannot pay $18 an hour for something that we used to pay $10 an hour for. What we can do is we can do an agreement with you guys because you already have ambulance service, and we can now fall into the city's pay band. That's how that works. If the city were to sign a contract, quote unquote, with the federal government, they would fall into the same rules that executive order set up. The federal government can't afford it. The city's not offering to do that. Instead, they set up, in the genius of the government sometimes, and I say that lightly, but they set up a provision to self-prevail and be sustainable, which was, we can't afford to follow this. So what we can do is change a little bit of a rule so that if somebody else is already providing it, we can save $6, $7 an hour for the same service that normally we were paying $10 for. Again, it's very complicated. There's been a lot of bad information put out about it. I've tried my best to educate all parties on it. The city has done its due process. It's clean. It's there in federal law. That's what's going on. So I hope that we start to put the right information out about how these things are working, because it's not pro-fort, pro-city, anti-business. It's just the way the rules were kind of set up in order to prevent a service becoming unsustainable, one, because we also want services out there, and two, was to make sure that the defense side could continue to pay the bills with their budget cuts that were coming in. I'll stick around and try to answer questions as best I can. It's all out there. I provided some information up, but just let me know. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mount. We'll next have Mrs. Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I simply want to say thank you all for attending our meeting tonight. This doesn't have to be the last one. If you don't care to come to the meeting, you can always contact us here at City Hall, and we will gladly visit with you or return your call, however you'd like to meet. So it's always good when we get citizen input, and we appreciate you being here tonight. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Calhoun. Mayor Pro Tem Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realized that during my earlier comments, I did not state a date and a time for the Carmichael Neighborhood Association meetings. I expect to see at least 5 of you there at the next meeting. Typically, they are held the first Thursday at 5:30 at Carmichael Elementary School. And I think Pastor Buck asked a great question: how do we know about the West End? Well, I never lived in the West End. I'm not from the West End. So how do I learn? I talk to folks like you. I go to Carmichael Neighborhood Association meetings. Sometimes I get yelled at about things that the city is not doing, but that's how we progress. There are a number of examples that I could provide, one of which is the input that I got about streetlights and sidewalks in and around the Frytown area. Those streetlights that the city recently put in with community development block grant money, I can speak only for myself. That input came directly from people who lived in the Carmichael and Frytown area at those meetings. So when you ask why, thank you, Pastor Buck. So when you ask why I encourage you to go to those meetings, it's not because it's rainbows and butterflies. It's because there are people at those meetings who have the same concerns as you do, who might be frustrated with me, but who can bring up those issues. Another example are the trash cans that have been put in by Father Greg and his community to make it easier to move trash out of the community. So again, that's how things get done. Come to those meetings, come talk to me. I get talked to by frustrated people a lot. I'm used to it. I'm not afraid of it. So please, so we can make some progress. And again, don't let yourself decide decisions based on rumors. At the very least, come to a Carmichael Neighborhood Association meeting. Let's talk facts with our staff and get information from a lot of different sources. And last, I just want to say that we are one community. I grew up in the city of Sierra Vista. This notion or perception that it's Frytown against the city is absurd to me. It shouldn't be that way. And if the city is propagating that or causing that, we need to hear it from you. If at the end of the day, Frytown decides that, or sectors that we have, what is the word I'm looking at? We have broken up into to get this done. If you don't want to be a part of the city, we're not going to force you to. The most important thing is that we are one community. The problem now is that we are one community under jurisdiction of different governments. And that's why we have a lot of those issues that have been brought up here today. So with that, I will stop my comments, and I thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Ash. I just want to make a couple quick ones here. I think one of the things about the public hearing, and you've heard it from just about everybody here, is communication is key. We learned some things tonight that you think we should provide information on. We're committed to do that. So as issues come up, as discussions go on, please contact us. Talk to the staff. Talk to the council people when you get a chance to bend an ear, and let's make sure that we're making decisions on the right information. And it's your decision, but let's make it on the right information. There was also a comment in the public, on the call to the public tonight, about a payment of $60,000 to an officer. In fact, that was the amount that he had paid into the PSPRS system, and that payment was given to his widow, as in fact is allowed by law. So with nothing else before us, meeting is adjourned.
On like the septic systems, there was like a small thing. Someone needed